Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm finally ready to do my full review on this sucker. This is the Jakeb Ginsberg Custom FatBoy fixed blade. Now, Jakeb made this for me a little bit after California Custom Knife Show. I got to meet him there, became friends with him. He's a really cool dude. I'll link to his Instagram and his, I think he has an Etsy shop. I want to say he does. I don't know. I'll link to whatever he has down below. I always just talk to him on Instagram. Really cool dude, and a great young new maker of fixed blades. So I got to handle the FatBoy he was carrying at California Custom Knife Show. Afterwards he reached out to me, asked if I'd be willing to have him make me a knife so I could review it. And I said, of course, that would be awesome. I'm not going to say no to one of these knives. And I already knew that I liked the one that I handled at CCKS. So he made this one specifically for me, and I'm really impressed with it. I have carried this as a small EDC fixed blade probably 10 times now. I've had it for a while. This has taken me a long time to get ready for this review. Part of it was it's been like a week and a half since I was able to last get up here, and I wanted to film this one outdoors. But anyways, this has made an awesome little EDC fixed blade. I've only recently, like within the last few months, realistically started getting into actually EDCing fixed blades. And I still don't do it every day. It's not like my go-to, but I'm not opposed to it now either. So it started to work for me with the Bradford Guardian 3. I've made it work with the Steingraber Performance Knives Shark, now with this, and I also just recently picked up the Giant Mouse GMF1. And so I'm liking carrying EDC fixed blades at certain times. Again, not all the time, but certain times. The way that I've made this one work is I keep meaning to redo this wrap on the sheath that I did with this paracord that looks super janky, but it works really well for me, and so I just haven't cut it off and retied it to make it look better yet, but I will ultimately. So for right now, I've been carrying it horizontal. That's the only way that I found that it reliably and comfortably works for me to EDC a fixed blade. So it goes just to the side of my belt buckle, and I'll loop in a clip of exactly how I do it. But this is the way that I've been doing it, and with these tied on in this way, it just cants it on just the right angle to be comfortable for me, so I've liked this kind of setup on here. Yeah, the sheath that he made is awesome. There's no wobble, no wiggle, it's very secure in there, and he did this really cool carbon fiber finish on it. He sends it with an ulti clip. I ended up taking that off and going the paracord route. I imagine you could probably do soft loops of some sort on here as well if you got the right size. So that's an option, but I've really liked this. It's worked for me. And this is basically what I did on my Steingraber Shark. So that's kind of why I landed on it this way for this one as well. So let's talk about the knife now, because the sheath is excellent. Carrying it has worked great. It's not too heavy in here. It's not overly thick. It's just a good... As EDC fixed blades go, this one is very carryable. Outside of the sheath, you'll find that this sucker, set that down, looks awesome. On this side, you'll notice it is totally flat over here because it is chisel ground. And this is my first foray into actually like carrying and using a chisel ground knife. And so I've been really curious to see how it would perform. And as I've tested it, I've been really impressed. On this side, you'll see it's all of the complexity lies over here on the blade. It looks really nice to me. This is a hollow grind down here. We've got a swedge up here. I like that it's kind of a clip point, and it's just kind of a stubby little blade. It's got an amazing tip on it that I've found is just fantastic for piercing tasks, but he's gotten it pretty thin down right behind the edge. Obviously it gets thick quickly, so this is just kind of like a bruiser little knife. This isn't like an amazing slicer for like processing a bunch of thin stuff, but I found when I've just needed to like bust out kind of a robust small knife, this is great for pulling out and like cutting through stuff. Even out here, I've tested it on like branches and loose stuff, and it works great. So I really like this blade profile, and it being my first kind of try with a chisel ground knife, I'm impressed. I'm not opposed to chisel ground knives, and yeah, I've quite liked it. This one is in 01 tool steel, which I think for this knife is a totally acceptable steel choice. I think it works very well on here. I haven't really had issues with corrosion. I even left it a little bit dirty after the last cutting that I did of some branches out here, and there's like just the littlest bit of discoloration kind of right on the edge, but I'm sure I could even wipe that off. I'm not worried about it. I like how dark he's taken this acid wash as well, and then stone washed it. Just a really cool finish. I think it contrasts well with these bright blue G10 scales. It just looks really good. So yeah, G10 scales, 01 tool steel. His finishing on here is really cool as well. If you look at the kind of tang, it's all polished, but then you've got the acid wash on the actual like blade itself. Just looks really, really cool. I also, you'll notice, have left the lanyard on here. This is, I think, the only knife in my current possession that has a lanyard on it, and it just hasn't bothered me at all. In fact, I found a couple of times that it's been a little bit nice to have that as just kind of an extra measure, because this handle doesn't really like flare out back here, and it's not a ton to hold on to, and so having that just makes me feel a little bit more secure, that if I do slip, I've got kind of a knot to catch me back there, and it makes it easier pulling it in and out of the sheath and all that. So the lanyard has stayed on. I know for me that's blasphemy, but I don't know that it'll be on there forever, ever, but I haven't minded it. Which is weird to say, but it's true. The pins he used on here are interesting as well. So this little one in the back is G10. Sorry. This one. And then this one is micarta. They're both black, and so you have to get close to kind of see like the grain in that micarta, if you will, or the, I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, the weave. So it looks really cool to me. Yeah, the handle construction is really nice. Feels very solid. This G10 is really smooth and polished, so it just feels very like comfortable to hold on to. I don't know, I dig this knife a lot. So yeah, let's talk just kind of rapid fire about the things that I normally talk about. I'll leave action out because there's no action on a fixed blade, but ergonomically, this knife is super comfortable for me. I like putting my thumb kind of up here in the curve, and then I do just barely get my pinky on here, so I get all four fingers just barely, and then I've got a nice kind of, by putting my thumb up here, I feel like I'm also like pulling the knife down into my hand, so I've got the guard pressing this way, I've got my thumb pushing it in, and it just feels pretty locked in. I've got this, in case anything happens, I can slip back onto the lanyard, but it feels really nice in hand. It's the right amount of thickness that it like fills my hand well. It doesn't feel like too insignificant. Like I can feel that I'm really holding onto a knife, but it's also not massive either. As like a small EDC fixed blade, this makes a lot of sense to me, because I mean, I can do some pretty hardcore cutting tasks with it being a fixed blade, but it's still a really small footprint. So as long as my cutting edge can handle the cutting task, if I've got enough length there, then like the construction is strong enough to handle just about anything I throw at it. So yeah, Ergos are very good. Carry, like I said, with that sheath, the way I've set it up, it's very comfortable. I like it quite a bit. It hasn't bothered me at all when I've got it on me. It's a great way to carry it. I've carried it, frankly, as kind of a secondary. I've still had a primary folder on me, but the way that I've carried it, kind of appendix, just to the right of my belt buckle, it's comfortable. It's not a problem. And it's not overly heavy either. And then cutting performance. This being a chisel ground blade, it cuts differently than other knives do. That's for sure. Like, it's not like I was surprised to find like, oh, it actually feels exactly the same. Like, no, it does cut differently. To have all flat over here and then grind over here, this knife works right-handed for me very well. If I do pass it to my left hand, which I do sometimes for cutting tasks, then it gets a little wonky. Just the way that the edge relates to your hand feels a little different. But in the right hand, the way it indexes, it just cuts very, very well. And I find I'm able to slice decently with it, even though it gets thick pretty quick right after the edge. But it's got a really sharp edge on it, and it's stayed very sharp. I haven't even stropped this knife, and it's still got a great edge on it. And after putting it through like wood, cardboard, and I've done some zip ties with it, like I've really tried to feel it out. I'm impressed that this 01 doesn't have any deformation at all. So yeah, it cuts well, it cuts different, but cuts well. It carries well, it goes in my hand well, it's comfortable. I think it's really cool to look at, and the people I've shown it to all think it's like interesting. It's a cool design for this knife, and I like the way it looks, and I don't know, it's almost got like kind of like a rhino horn thing going on. It's just a lot of fun. Plus I like that he calls it the FatBoy. Feels like he's making a dad bod joke at me when this is the knife that he picked to make me. But I enjoy this knife quite a bit. There's a lot that's good about it, and it just works really, really well. So, if you haven't checked out Jakeb Ginsberg's custom knives yet, definitely check him out. He's worth looking at, and he makes really good, really high-quality custom fixed blades. And not just this one, but I follow him closely on Instagram and see just about everything he posts, and a ton of his knives look really, really cool. And I've actually got a couple of buddies that have purchased knives from him at this point and have all said very positive things as well. So, really good work across the board. And yeah, thank you again, Jakeb. I appreciate you sending this to me to review. I apologize it took me this long to get my full review shot and up, but yeah, I like this knife quite a bit. So, this is the Jakeb Ginsberg Custom FatBoy, and I really quite like this knife. It is an awesome little EDC fixed blade. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.